I'm not a big fan of scaling in medical aesthetics for the simple fact that if you talk to most patients, they don't want to go to a reproducible, um, everything looks the same practice. They come to aesthetic practices because they want to feel special. They want to feel taken care of. They want to know their provider and have that relationship, like Lori and Tracy have talked. And so, Kara, to answer your question on entering the field of aesthetic medicine, let me give you some thoughts and a process. Um, the first thing you want to do is you want to really make sure of why you're thinking about this field. Um, I jokingly talk to a lot of people all the time who say when they put ads out that they get responses from two people. One is the 50-year-old nurse who's been in the hospital or clinic their whole life and they got Botox or a treatment for the first time. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know nurses could do this. What a great job. I'm going to go to a weekend training. I'm going to get this job and I'm going to stand in a room and I'm going to inject Botox all day long. Not the job.
So for employees or for staff, you want somebody that is very like-minded, like you are. You have the same goals, the same visions. Somebody that's a good team player. You don't want somebody to be, sort of thinking they're going to be in charge of everybody, but everybody has to be a part of the team, whether they're a non-regulated provider or whether they're a regulated provider. So all the way from, your front office staff, they have to be able to know, how to greet patients. They have a checklist of things that they're to say on the phone when somebody calls up. Everyone loves to have a phone call. I know everybody's sort of automated now.
Social media mine took off like wildfire, and I can't tell you why. I do my own. It looks like a fourth grader does it. I don't know why. Maybe because it's just real. It's just me. So I haven't changed it from that, and I do my own. So it is what it is. It's not super pretty, but it is. So I think that struck a note with my family, my Instagram family, I should say. And I think they realize that I'm there. It's real. It's off the cuff information. It's me wanting to share, and it helps patients and providers both understand that it's just me, it's casual, this is just information, little tidbits you might want to learn. And it helps patients be more comfortable with me. They know how I am. It's kind of like a dipstick test. I find that social media with patients that come into me, and probably every other day.
I'm guilty of this myself. So maybe what I'll do is just share less about problems I see and more about like, how do I manage myself and what do I tell busy women who need to keep the main thing the main thing. And I guess I will start with like one problem. I think that like looking at practices and women in this space, it's usually not the goal setting and keeping the main thing that's the problem. It is the keeping the main thing to getting it to execution and not having a predictable, what I call like rhythm of the business in place to achieve that goal. So I would say number one would be look at your weeks and ask yourself, what is your rhythm of the business? And I hate when people use those like fancy business terms.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Business of Aesthetics Annual Expert Panel Webinar on Women in Aesthetic Leadership, Pioneering Growth, Innovation, and Influence. Thank you for joining us and our panel of renowned industry leaders as they share actionable strategies, best practices, and valuable insights to tackle the unique leadership challenges faced by aesthetic professionals today. We also have a very interesting gift for you that I'll have more details closer to the end of the webinar, but a little hint, Narain Arulaja, the founder of the Business of Aesthetics Institute, is part of this special gift. But first of all, let me just go ahead and just welcome our panelists to this webinar, Tracy Hata, Lori Robertson, Mary Beth Hagan, and Kelsey Herringer. It is great to have the four of you with us tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today, with our Business of Aesthetics Leadership Expert Panel, we're going to discuss, as I said, women in aesthetic leadership. I love the pioneering growth, innovation, and influence. In an industry that's so moving quickly, so many new things constantly evolving, what a perfect timely topic for us to dig into. This is a live event, so please engage with your peers, ask questions, and we're confident you'll leave equipped with actionable strategies to implement immediately. I do want to encourage you that the chat is open and you can pose questions. We will make sure that we try and capture them and ask them of our panelists while we're in real time in the webinar. If we do miss one, we'll make sure we follow up with you and get an answer to you. But before we dive in, let me just ask you this. When potential patients in your area search for treatments you offer, does your practice actually show up, or are they finding your competitors instead? This is a major challenge for many aesthetic practice owners. You might be offering amazing services, but if you're not visible online, you're missing out on a steady stream of new patients. The good news? Well, there's a fix. With the right digital marketing strategy covering local SEO, targeted ads, and funnel-based content marketing, you can not only attract more inquiries, but convert them into actual patients walking through your doors. Now, here's the best part. Stick around to the end because we've got something special. I've already alluded to that. Something that could help you take your practice's online presence to the next level. So before I jump into the topic, let me just go ahead and introduce the panelists and myself. Say my name is Michael Walker. As a leadership coach, professional mediator, and facilitator, I'm passionate about helping set leaders and their teams up for success that matters. With a focus on communication, conflict, and change, my team and I at Capstone Coaching help unlock and engage the full potential of an organization and its people. Our first panelist up is Tracy Hotta, pardon me. Tracy has spent 34 of her 40 years of nursing in the specialty of aesthetic medicine. The first 24 years with 2 plastic surgeons, where she established an injectable practice within the clinic space. The last 10 years focused on her own independent practice, and in 2016, THMA Consulting, Training, and Mentoring Program was established and currently subcontracts to 22 clinical trainers in 13 training facilities across Canada. Tracy is the past president of the iSpan and a founding member for the Canadian Society of Aesthetic Specialty Nurses. She chaired a task force that developed the standards and guidelines for aesthetic nurse injectors and is recognized by the Canadian Nurse Association. Our next panelist up is Lori Robertson. Lori has over 41 years of experience in medicine, starting as an ER and ICU nurse for 24 years, before becoming a nurse practitioner in 2004. She entered aesthetics in 2007 and has since become a respected speaker and international educator. She serves on multiple advisory boards and medical conference faculties. Lori has received several industry honors, including the Clinical Innovator of the Year at Aesthetics Next, the iconic Nurse Award from the National Nurses Pub, and National Aesthetic Nurse of the Year from the Aesthetic Academy. Beyond aesthetics, she has served as a Los Angeles County Deputy Sheriff Reserve for 13 years, so we best be on our best behavior. Won 4 national championships racing Corvettes, and I was just talking about Corvettes, I didn't know that, and worked as a medical consultant and actress for ABC's General Hospital for 19 years. Oh, now we're going to all need to get autographs. Our next panelist up is Kelsey Herringer. Kelsey is a seasoned growth executive with 20 years of experience in healthcare, technology, and aesthetics, specializing in provider revenue generation and go-to-market strategies. After 2 decades working with companies ranging from startups to Fortune 500s, she founded her own fractional executive consulting and coaching business. She helps CEOs and commercial executives overcome revenue challenges, strengthen leadership teams, and drive healthcare provider and doctor product adoption. Her expertise includes expanding revenue opportunities and implementing innovative strategies to improve sales conversions. Kelsey also works with high-achieving managers, directors, and VPs to break out of career stagnation, advancing their professional growth, and maximize both fulfillment and earning potential. And our fourth panelist is Mary Beth Hagan. Mary Beth founded Titan Aesthetic to support skilled injectors in delivering excellent patient outcomes. She has worked in aesthetics since 2005, gaining expertise at Medicis, now Galderma, and Allergan. As the Botox cosmetic product manager, she helped launch the crow's feet lines indication and created marketing programs like Botox for Friends and she's also collaborated with the FDA to protect the supply chain and ensure ethical business practices. As a national account director, she worked with corporate aesthetic organizations, gaining insight into both clinical and business aspects of injectables. Her experience with key opinion leaders led her to develop the Titan Aesthetic Screening Protocol, designed to identify injectors with natural aesthetic aptitude and strong communication skills. Mary Beth prioritizes patient safety and natural results, believing that proper foundational training and peer education for new injectors will contribute to better patient outcomes in the long run. Well, we certainly have an esteemed lineup tonight, and I'm excited to be posing some great questions to them. And you will now see on your screen the main points for today's discussion that I'm confident we will be able to deliver with this, in this amazing and going to be very insightful webinar. We have questions lined up that have come from registrants that we are going to be asking. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm just going to remind you, as you hear something, throw a question up in the chat. Let us communicate it back to the participants, the panelists, or have a comment, just something you're hearing. Or just last night, boy, we were on one, and there was just so many happy faces and hearts and thumbs up flying. It's just, we really want to make this an engageable process that you can, that just creates a sense of ownership for you and creates greater value for you as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share now. And there we are, we're back together, and I'm going to go ahead and start asking some questions, and I'm going to lead off with Kelsey. So Kelsey, workplace dynamics can be challenging, especially when dealing with difficult personalities. What strategies have you found most effective for setting boundaries while maintaining career growth?
Ooh, that's a good one. And I'm like, ooh, wish I could seek some wisdom, because I'm now hearing from the other panelists. I think we have like 150 years of experience between us all. So I will say, I see Kirsten is on and Mary Beth are on. And so some of these difficult personalities that I have experienced along the way, they've seen too. But I guess I would say on this one, if I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, and I could give myself one piece of advice after working with amazing leaders, bad leaders, very like the top visionaries, narcissists, passive leaders, across the gamut, I would say learn the playbook for giving and receiving hard feedback. And I say that because it is what helps you command a room, earn respect, and hold your ground. And so I see in practices or in coaching people all the time, so many people are not honest. You oftentimes find owners and providers, and I'm guilty of this myself, so not calling anybody out, but often talking about people, how they aren't happy with people's performance or behaviors versus telling people directly. And it costs owners thousands of dollars to not be direct, and dollars on spinning. And it's really also very unkind. So if we're all really honest on this call, the truth is that the ones of us on here that are going to be incredibly successful and that will thrive are going to do the uncomfortable thing. And I think that being uncomfortable, confronting the truth, and being willing to challenge the status quo and call out efficiencies to kind of steer the ship, and be the one to say the hard thing when nobody dares to say the hard thing or do the hard thing, that is what leads to winning. And that's the kind of presence I think that attracts the attention and earns the respect, especially if you're giving feedback to somebody who is above you. It's an automatic like commanding of authority. So I would say on the flip side, people who just give praise and who avoid tough feedback, they are often seen as people pleasers, or neutral. And I think like worst case, not memorable and kind of invisible. So I guess my piece of advice in giving and receiving hard feedback would be two like actionable tips is make it a rule that you're not going to talk about somebody else or give feedback on somebody else to somebody else unless you have said it to that person. And that holds you accountable. to making sure you do the brave and hard thing of giving feedback. And then a second thing would be learning the playbook for giving and receiving really hard feedback. And I'm sure a question might come up like, well, how do you learn that? And Radical Candor, it's an older book, but I think it's a really good starting point to learn the foundation of how to frame up with lots of examples, how to deliver hard feedback in a way that is still organic and genuine to yourself.
Thank you, Kelsey. And you just answered Kristen's question about how can you be direct without offending people. Well, you need to work on that. You know, one of the things that as a professional mediator, I deal with this stuff a lot. And, you know, it's sometimes it's just you hit the nail on the head. Like, I want to have can I ask you a question? I want to have a hard conversation with you. I want it to stay between us, and I want us to be able to work through this in a way that we can both come out of this learning and growing together. Are you willing to have that conversation with me? We're not usually comfortable setting something up like that, but that's a mediator technique 101, because people then are placed in this a yes or no. And if they say no, well, that's sets the table a little differently, but most people will say yes. And it's to your point, well put, Casey. It's just sometimes it's just hard to start the conversation, hard to be. But if the technique that for myself that I learned, I spend an awful lot of times posing and asking those questions, looking in the mirror, and just practicing.
That's a great way.
I just started to get comfortable with me doing it. And because I was a poster boy for the fear of conflict, and it worked. It works over time. So anyway, that was great. Kelsey, thank you very much. Lori, I've got a question for you. And Kirsten, I hope that helped answer your question and get you flowing. Again, you're all going to have access to these folks in terms of contact information. So, you know, we're going to scratch the surface here, dig in a little bit in some things. And I'm going to encourage you right now to make sure you're capturing good bullet points that you can then circle back around to the panelists and dig into a little deeper. Lori, the question I have for you is, both a provider and business owner, how do you balance delivering high quality patient care while also growing a successful aesthetic practice?
That's the holy grail right there. It's really those of us that both work in our clinics still, and then we're out there teaching, we're out there doing research. It's hard. It's really hard. So I've always made sure that I really touch base, and I'm very tight with my clinic, and that I'm in it at least 3 to 4 days a week. And I'm only gone on the weekends to go teach or whatever I need to do. I try not to be gone very long, because I need to have my touch point with my clinic. I need to know what's going on with my patients. My staff, like, we miss each other. We're a team. It's, you know, we get along so well that when we're gone, we really do kind of miss each other. We vibe very, very well, and we're very like-minded. So that really, really helps with having really good patient care and making sure that we are on point continually, and that continues to be something that's really important for me. It's a challenge. I think all of us that have a lot of directions we are pulled. I'm pulled in a million directions. I don't even know where I'm going next week unless I look at my calendar. I can't even tell you where I'm flying. So we're pulled in so many directions. I have friends that look at me and go, "How do you do it? How do you do it?" I'd have to sleep for a week if I was gone for a weekend. And I really think that attitude is everything. Attitude is everything. And I think that if we have that right attitude of, like, you know, I am out there sharing because people want to hear what I have learned. People want to hear what I have to share. I feel humbled. And it encourages me as a provider to go back to my clinic and learn more, and to keep learning more, and to keep sharing what I've learned on the outside with my patients on the inside and with my staff. So it works both ways. It's very reciprocal, I think.
Thank you, Lori. We just had a conversation about, we're talking about, you know, about where I talked about time management. I said, you know, we want to have a passion for what we're doing, but we want to right size our investment in it and our time in it. And I think that sometimes we get caught up just doing a whole lot of things. And I don't know if this makes sense to you guys, but I don't think we're in an era where being a generalist suits anybody well. We really need to focus in on things that we're great at. And I just really, I hear what you're saying with that, and just so appreciate the intensity in which you present that. I think you have, the word that comes to mind is intentional. You got to be intentional with this stuff. You can't just talk about it, think about it, plan it. You got to be intentional. So thank you, Lori. Tracy, I'm going to circle back to you, or come up to you. So Tracy, hiring and retaining great talent is a major challenge in aesthetics. We certainly have heard a lot about that. What are the key factors you look for when building a strong patient-centered team?
So for employees or for staff, you want somebody that is very like-minded, like you are. You have the same goals, the same visions. Somebody that's a good team player. You don't want somebody to be, sort of thinking they're going to be in charge of everybody, but everybody has to be a part of the team, whether they're a non-regulated provider or whether they're a regulated provider. So all the way from, your front office staff, they have to be able to know, how to greet patients. They have a checklist of things that they're to say on the phone when somebody calls up. Everyone loves to have a phone call. I know everybody's sort of automated now, but I still think that it's really important to have that person on the phone and making sure that they know what to tell patients when the phone's being answered and when they shouldn't be giving medical advice. Because that's happened in the past when I worked in the clinic, is that the secretary was giving medical advice and there was issues involved with that. So really coordinating the team together. Like everybody's a team, everybody's collaborating together, and you're doing all your, networking, you've got lunch and learns, and everybody's learning the same thing so that it goes from one person to the other, and you're not working in silos.
Thanks, Tracy. I just saw some statistics. We talk about the phone. The Gen Z, the 18 to 26-year-olds, 60% of them dread answering a call. And the millennials, the older group, 28 to 43, 81% are anxious about taking or accepting a call. And you think about that. Just there's so many things that have become that we used to take, or we used to be uphill all the way to school too, but we used to take for granted but there's new phobias, there's new stuff, and being a team player, it has new definitions and new framework. And I love the way you put that. I mean, we just got to be thinking through some of the practical elements of what it looks like to have a team in today's culture and in today's dynamics of humanness, I guess, if I was going to put it anyway. Mary Beth, the question I have for you is, with so many aesthetic practices competing for patients, what are the most effective strategies for building a strong brand that truly stands out?
I think I think it's all four of us could have fun answers to a lot of the questions you asked. And looking at branding is something that I encourage the practices that I work with, the owners who are thinking about, the injectors who are thinking about opening practices, to think about before they even start. So the first thing that I suggest is, I want you to sit down and think about, if you meet somebody in Costco or in the airport and they ask, what do you do? And you say, I'm an aesthetic provider. And then they say, tell me what that means. You should have a message that rings true to your heart, your goals of what you want to accomplish with your practice, and that meets your own personal values for how you do things. And that should be part of your branding message. So I think you build your practice, you build your business around what your brand is going to be. So when somebody asks you, you say, here's who I am and here's why. So if somebody asks me, why did I start Titan and what do we do? I have a love for supporting aesthetic providers, and Titan supports great injectors and great practices for great patient outcomes. And that's what we do every day. And so that's what I encourage practice owners and injectors to do. Because even if you are an aesthetic provider in a practice, you still have your own brand that is helping to support the brand of the practice that you work in. And you need to understand that and be able to communicate that clearly.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mary. I have a thing I always say to students or people, don't go looking for a job, go looking for a passion. And I would send students off and say, hey, listen, I want you to go over to Lori's office. That you think she's a great role model? Go ask her why she's passionate about what she does, and what are the 2 or 3 things that have set her up for success. And they do that. And they don't go asking for a job. It's about finding out that passion, where the alignment is. But it's amazing how often students will come back and say they really struggle answering that question.
But, you have to not only be passionate, but you have to be good at it as well.
Yes.
And that's something that I think we struggle with these days in aesthetic medicine. There are a lot of people who think they are passionate about aesthetic medicine, but they haven't done the work, they haven't spent the years, they haven't seen the patients, they haven't done the training to truly be good at it. And that's what makes this specialty of aesthetic medicine very different than a lot of things out there with other businesses.
Excellent. Very good, Mary. Yeah, I'm passionate about playing in the NFL, but I'm not prepared to put the work in to get there. And I might be a little too old now, but we don't need to dig into that. We'll just walk by that. But let's go to Kelsey. And Kelsey, many professionals work hard but struggle to stand out for promotions. What are the key actions top performers take to accelerate their careers?
That is a very good one. Sidebar, my son wants to be the next Justin Jefferson. So when we stay on afterwards, we can chat football. But
Oh, right.
let's see. So, I would say after getting the privilege to manage hundreds of people and coach people, I usually see like 3 themes. So I'll start with a problem before I get to the solution. And usually it is people are not driving their careers because they assume people are mind readers and should just know how special they are. And just because they feel like I'm crushing it and I'm delivering so much that other people should know that. The second is that they are afraid of being labeled as like self-serving or greedy or arrogant. And then the third is that they lack like a systematic approach of like, how do I build this into my routine to always be thinking about my next promotion? So just a quick, I guess, double click into each one of those and like a tip for each one. So I would say making the assumption, this I think we're all guilty of, that people are often just assuming that, hey, I'm crushing it, and so they should know the impact that I'm making. But any more in today's world, a piece of advice is it's rare that you get promoted for just doing your job. And so you need to operate at a level above where you are currently at. And you need to be thinking about, if you want to get promoted often, how am I delivering outsized impact? And outsized impact would be, okay, I'm in charge of delivering 100 leads. So I'm going to deliver 200, or I'm going to deliver 100 leads and create a nurture series that converts the leads at a higher rate, that then I can go show leadership, here's the math of what I incrementally contributed. So I think assuming that all the time that if you are not sharing your impact, it's safe to say that they aren't getting it, would be the first. And then the second of the fear of being labeled as arrogant or self-serving. I would say one thing, again, going back to always on sharing what it is, the impact that you're delivering, whether it's in the hallway, whether it's on Slack, I would challenge you every week. And then hopefully you can turn to daily of how you will work it into your routine of how you are sharing what you are doing. And I would also just piggyback off of what Mary Beth said. I always encourage people to like write down their intro. And she was talking about it in terms of branding, but it's really helpful to frame your impact of what you do on a daily basis back to the company's mission and to make sure that you're tying it to the top financials. So it should never be, I did these 98 activities. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody cares. And it makes you be positioned as like a get shit done person versus a strategic contributor that delivers impact. So you should always be thinking about, how can I take an hour and not make excuses for how I am on a weekly basis delivering to the company's top financials. And then last is that I see there is no systematic approach. So a tip here would be, if you are not having a development discussion with your boss every 8 weeks, and I can run through a quick agenda or drop it in the chat if anybody is interested in like, here's a 3-question agenda to run this, how you would run it so that it's not awkward. but you should be having a discussion about and calibrating with your manager. How do you think I'm doing? And here's how I think I am doing. Yes, I will definitely drop it in there. Thank you, Stephanie. So that you are always driving your career. And I was reading an interesting stat the other day that people who drive their careers and have 4 development discussions a year in the medical space, they will make 50% more on average at the end of their career than people who wait and react and wait for HR or their annual reviews. So highly recommend that you drive and advocate. So I will drop those into the chat and happy to answer any further questions.
Yeah, perfect, Kelsey. Somebody said, I knew as soon as you said that, there's going to be hands going up on that. Offering something, it's interesting, if you stop thinking about the concept of a brand is at its core a relationship. And we are a brand and we are a relationship. And our brand has transactional elements, what we do and how we do it, the KPI stuff of what we are hired to do. It also, though, has a relational space, which is about who we are and why we matter and how we add value to the culture of the community and the overall vision of the organization. And I love to say, have you got 10 minutes, Kelsey, that we could sit down and celebrate the wins for this week? And who doesn't want to do that? I mean, some people don't, but anyway. I thank you for that. That was great, Kelsey. Lori, I'm going to circle back around to you. And Lori, you've successfully built a strong presence on social media. What advice do you have for aesthetic professionals looking to use digital platforms to grow their practice?
Well, where do I start? That's such a hot button with me. Social media mine took off like wildfire, and I can't tell you why. I do my own. It looks like a 4th grader does it. I don't know why, maybe because it's just real. It's just me. So I haven't changed it from that. And I do my own. So it is what it is. It's not super pretty, but it is. So I think that struck a note with my family, my Instagram family, I should say. And I think they realize that I'm there. It's real. It's off the cuff information. It's me wanting to share. And it helps patients and providers both understand that it's just me. It's casual. This is just information, little tidbits you might want to learn. And it helps patients be more comfortable with me. They know how I am. It's kind of like a dipstick test. I find that social media with patients that come into me, and probably every other day I get patients that come in from Instagram. They watch me talk, they watch me teach, they go through everything. They look at everywhere I go to, they know where I'm traveling. They come into my office and they're like, you know what? I chose you because we match. Water seeks the same level. So a lot of the people that come in from social media, they're awesome because they already match my personality style, very much so. It's interesting. So a lot of those are like that. So when they come in already trusting me. I don't have to vet myself to these patients. So it's not like a referral from Google. It's not like a referral from a patient, like a family member. This is someone who already has vetted me. So it's something new for me because I never had social media years ago growing up in medicine. So it was something relatively new, and I wasn't used to this, where someone would come into me and they say, you know what, do my lips. I'm like, we don't know. Let me explain. They're like, no. I've already seen your videos. I want my lips done. Go ahead. And I'm like, no. I need to explain the risks and the benefits and how it's done and if there's consequences. And so it's just the weirdest thing for me to kind of still have to stop them. And I really go back in and really kind of make sure they understand me, understand my core values, and that I'm not going to make you look weird. Safety's priority with me. I want you natural. So I really reiterate those no matter what they think I am. The flip side of social media is that you get social media hoppers. They come to all the popular social media people. So when they'll come to me, they're like, well, I've been to Dr. So-and-so and nurse so-and-so and queen of this and king of that. And then they come to me and I'm like, okay, they're on Instagram. They're a social media hopper. So they're going to hop to me and then they'll just hop somewhere else. So it's really hard to think you're going to keep a lot of those patients because they're just kind of wanting to go around and meet different providers. So that's part of what we see. But the majority of people who do come from social media stay. The ones who are really not the hoppers, who really are looking for something of value and looking for somebody who knows what they're doing, who takes an interest in patients, and match with their values, they match up and they come and they stay, and then they refer friends, which is the biggest compliment I could have. The other flip side on social media is I really think social media has been both the best and the worst of the specialty of aesthetics. I think it has shown those of us that like to teach, people see what we do. Then again, we have other individuals who are maybe newer in aesthetics or aren't quite as well versed in it that have great social media managers who make them look like they are the best in the whole world and they can't even handle their own complications. So it worries me. And then those are the ones that some of the conferences think are amazing because they've got lots of followers. And so they put them on podium and they spread misinformation. It's not evidence-based. So I have big concerns with that. So there's some things I've kind of backed out of some conferences because I just see some of that happening. I really think that, like I talked to a lot of friends who have been in this for years, and we say, you know what, if we just stay on the straight and narrow, we stay on our path, we are honest to ourselves, we are honest to our patients, a lot of that frill and the other stuff we see happening extraneously that people might like for a short time, I think that might be short-lived. So I think that if a lot of us kind of stay on our straight and narrow and our paths of being very ethical, I think we're going to win out over a lot of some of the things that aren't quite as such.
Thank you, Lori. And thank you for, Kelsey, thanks for putting up that agenda request that's in there now. And thank you for your questions. You guys, we're getting some great questions and some great comments. So please keep them coming. It really helps us make sure we just expand how the answers are answering. You guys are rolling right into those really nicely. You know, I think of the saying, Lori, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And if we think of that like an annuity, that's what you've done. That's what, so you build a consistent message out there. It's really your style, your way of doing it. But over time, for someone to come in and trust you with their lips is not, that is a huge compliment to people recognizing that not only do you know what you're doing, but you care, you genuinely care. And I love how you put that. Thank you, Tracy.
You know, my patients can see that. Patients see through fake providers. They see through providers who just want the money. And we see that all the time. So it's really important that we as providers stay true to ourselves. We stay true to our ethical and core values, that we are there for the patient. We're not there for the money. Yes, we do need to make money to stay open. But how do we do that? We take care of our patients first. We focus on our patients' needs. And when they understand that we care more about them than we do the dollar, believe me, the dollar will come back to us on the back end because they're going to refer friends to us and neighbors and relatives because they trust us with their care. And we're going to get it on the back end. We don't need to worry.
Yes. Thank you, Lori. Absolutely. I think that's the important piece there is that if it's about money and if it's the people you're referring to that maybe are not quite are delivering at a different level, that kind of gets weeded out when people tend to focus on the wrong things. So we can just hope for that. Tracy, a question for you. Tracy, leadership in aesthetics comes with its own sets of challenges, as we certainly know and have been talking about. Can you share a time when you faced a major obstacle as a leader and how you overcame it?
Oh, there was many. There's been
Really?
There's been a lot. You know, there's always barriers that have been thrown up that either you have to go over them, you go under them, you go around them. Being in the field for 34 years, 36 years, I think the biggest obstacle was that nurses were not seen as being independent practice nurses. We were working for physicians, but not working with them when I first started. So I think that was the first major barrier that I had. Oh, dear.
It's okay, I'll take care of that. Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay. That was the first major one that I had, is that trying to go beyond the physician group that didn't feel that nurses should be doing aesthetic medicine. And then it was dealing with the nursing college, and you know, that was a whole new a new experience for the nursing colleges as well as going, but this is self-pay. How does that work? When we first started, and sort of bouncing off of Lori's social media thing, I could go on and on about social media. It's a huge thing, because when we first started, and Lori the same, we didn't have social media. We counted on people being word of mouth. And if you were really good, you got referrals that way. You didn't have to rely on social media. So it is a friend, and it is a foe as well. So people do have to be careful with social media. So that was a bit of a barrier or a challenge for me, is that I didn't have to be on social media before. I built my success, without it. You do have to have it. You have to have social media, and you have to be aware that you are representing yourself as a professional on social media. So there's certain rules and regulations that have to be followed. Other barriers were other nurses. And, some people like to eat their young, though I wasn't young, but being that I really pride myself on being ethical and professional standards and everything, there were some that didn't agree with that. And I got reported to the college for a patient that wasn't even a patient, but it was a colleague. It was a competitor of mine. So, it was a learning experience. I took it as a learning experience, because I got to go through that whole discipline decision portion. But that is definitely, sort of that you want everybody to be in a tight network and everybody's positive and everything, but then you have outliers that may not appreciate some of the things that you're doing as a leader to build confidence with new injectors, or to, elevate the practice of aesthetics.
Thank you, Tracy. That was very well framed, very transparent. We appreciate that. Mary, I have a question for you. Technology is evolving rapidly in aesthetics. How can practices strategically adopt new tools to improve patient experience and business efficiency?
Okay, that's a whole hour's question, right? So I'll bring it back to the practice again. I think that a lot of people get sold a opportunity to bring new technology or new business processes into their practice because there are some very good salespeople, and nothing to take away from them. But I think practice owners and aesthetic providers need to always think about two things. Number one, what do they need to be safe and to be efficient when treating their patients? So does the new technology, does the new business process give a positive impact for allowing them to treat their patient? The second thing is, in terms of technology and new ways of doing things, does your patient base want it? If you have a patient base of 25 to 30-year-olds that get half a syringe of lip filler and, quote unquote, baby Botox, they probably are younger. They're probably very comfortable with more technological ways of being communicated with, of being able to do things in the office. But if you have an older patient population of more mature women who are anywhere from 45 to 65 or older, you may find that they still come to these practices because they want individual touch. They want pampering. They want to feel special. And so anytime you're looking at technology or business processes, you have to really keep in mind, is it going to help me be a better provider and provide great patient safety? And number two, is it something that my patient population will embrace and appreciate?
Thanks, Mary. And when you say they'll embrace and appreciate, I think too that sometimes people, technology shouldn't drive the business. The leader leads the business and introduces technology to build the relationships to deliver outstanding service and product delivery. But I think sometimes we just we don't know what we don't know. Somebody comes in and it's just this great idea, and I've seen this a lot. And this, speaking on the social media, I've done quite a few of these podcast webinars, and I see things that seem really exciting.
Mhm.
And I just, but where does that really bring value back to the client? And I guess the question, Mary Beth, is really, are you asking the questions as a leader, asking the right questions about how is this going to inform, build, and improve your business with a long-term view of success in mind. And
Well, I think it's what Tracy, Kelsey, and Lori have all mentioned tonight. Whatever you do in your practice, whether it be using your social media, whether it be using digital, whether it be setting up your performance objectives and communicating with your team and your staff, it all comes around to what are your goals for your practice? What do you already have to achieve those goals? And where are your gaps? And if those business processes fill a gap, or that technology fills a gap, that's great. If it's just because it looks cool, you might want to rethink it.
right. Thanks, Mary. Kelsey, next question is for you. And high achievers often structure their time differently. What are the most impactful habits professionals can adapt to managing their weeks like a CEO and focus on high value work?
Yeah, this is
That's a good question for you.
it is really hard. And I will admit, I'm guilty of this myself. So maybe what I'll do is just share less about problems I see and more about like, how do I manage myself and what do I tell busy women who need to keep the main thing the main thing. And I guess I will start with like one problem. I think that like looking at practices and women in this space, it's usually not the goal setting and keeping the main thing that's the problem. It is the keeping the main thing to getting it to execution and not having a predictable, what I call like rhythm of the business in place to achieve that goal. So I would say number one would be look at your weeks and ask yourself, what is your rhythm of the business? And I hate when people use those like fancy business terms. So think of it just more as like, what are my communications, my meetings, and my systems that weekly take me from that goal to the execution? And so it could be daily stand-ups to make sure that you're correcting their folks right on the spot when they're listing out what their priorities are for the day. Like, ooh, that's actually not a priority. Let's reshift the focus to here. Or do you have a bi-weekly metrics review meeting on the calendar to make sure that you're looking at the places that might be at risk for not hitting metrics? Or going back to what we just talked about, like, do you have every 8 weeks time on the calendar to be talking about your people's development to ensure that you're getting leverage out of your people and continuing to support and help them grow? And then my favorite, I do this myself every Friday. I put 15 minutes on the calendar and I audit, how did I spend my week? And how was I supposed to spend my week? And I look at what were like the major time sucks that I could look at for forward the next week that I want to avoid not happening again. The next thing I look at on Friday is like, did I hold myself to giving myself an hour and a half of think time every day? And we have different roles on the line here today. So that might not be something that you absolutely need to do. But if you are in leadership or are the owner of the practice, you absolutely need the think time. And it is something that is so easy to say, but I don't have the time. You have to make the time to be thinking about your business versus just reacting and being in the weeds all day. And then the last one would be, just because you've always spent your time doing something, make sure once a month that when you're doing these 15-minute reviews that you go through and look at your calendar and say, what could come off? Because we fall into this habit of, oh, this meeting has always been here, I've always attended it, but do you really need to? Or could we move it to async? Or could we move this one-on-one that you have every week? It's not that productive. Maybe you move it to one time a month. So I have found that auditing your time relentlessly is your best bet. And I'm a calendar invite person, so I have to book meetings with myself to hold myself accountable to do those types of things.
Okay, I love it. I personally, I love Google Calendar because I have the core non-negotiables in one calendar. And at the beginning of every week, everything goes off. I turn all the other calendars off except that one. And then I build my week. And then I start dropping things in so I never have to have a fight with myself about what I'm going to give up. Sometimes I have to change that, but quite often I'll have to admit. But yeah, I love that very structured approach you take. Lori, I'm going to come back to you with a question. So a patient experience is a huge factor in the success of any aesthetic practice. What are some key things providers can do to ensure patients feel valued and I would say heard and keep coming back?
I think you said it, that they are valued and heard. I think you
Yeah.
just said it. I think patients need to know, and I like I mentioned before, patients need to know that we are there for them. We are their provider. They trust us, which means we have a huge responsibility. And we can't just take a weekend course and go do this. We can't. This is something that takes a lot of education, a lot of experience, and we learn every day we're doing something with patients. So we need them to understand that we know what we're talking about, that we have that confidence to give them the right suggestions for what they might need for their complaint or their concern. We also need to be able to listen to them respectfully and be quiet sometimes and let them talk, because a lot of our sessions, a lot of our visits sometimes turn into therapy sessions. And you guys know this, Tracy. You're like, yeah, we have patients that really we share more time with them than a lot of other people do, and we get to know them very well. I'm actually writing a presentation paper on something that is really kind of hit me, that I found so many things that have been missed by primary care providers that we catch in aesthetics. I think it's because we spend a lot of time with our patients. We have the luxury of having time with them. So we are able to catch a lot of physical ailments, i.e., tumors, not just skin issues, but thyroid issues and throat cancers. And we see things, we listen to them, and we can find a lot of things that we can catch with them. So we are becoming a little bit more of a primary care provider nowadays than we ever used to be, because of the way that, at least here in the United States, not Canada, I don't think so much, but we are, as far as our reimbursement, and our providers have 15 minutes to take care of us. So when we address our patient holistically, that they are shocked. I mean, they're surprised that we know what we know and how we can help guide them to referral sources more than just aesthetics. So it becomes a very, very good trusting relationship with our patients. And that's just one of those cogs on the wheel to what we do. And it allows us to expand and for patients to tell others about us and to share about their good experience, because really what clarifies and what denotes going from one med spa to another, it's the experience. It's all about the experience. So we have to focus on that patient. That's got to be our why. That's got to be why we are doing what we're doing. And they know that. They know it. They're not stupid. They can feel it. They know when we make the eye contact, when we ask questions back to them, when we use active listening and communication. We look at our communication skills, make sure it matches with them. If they're loud, we might be loud. If they're quiet, we might quiet down. So it depends on what we're dealing with and how we kind of attune ourselves to our patient. They see that we're listening and watching them. So I think that makes a huge, big difference.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Lori. Yeah, that the number one reason employees leave a company and patients don't return is not being valued and heard. And Gallup's recent research just has indicated they've now modified that. It's not just valued and heard anymore, it's also respected, which is an interesting word to think and have a look at. That's something we haven't looked at too closely. Tracy, a question for you, and it's beyond business branding. How can aesthetic professionals build their personal brand and establish credibility in the industry?
For their personal, I just wanted to touch on what Lori had said, that with the patients, I think medical aesthetics has taken a huge growth in education, and it's not just these weekend courses anymore. And I think the providers are more educated now on how to do a proper medical assessment, how to do a proper medical history, and really collaborating with other medical professionals, that patients are getting, they're seeing this is a medical procedure done by a medical professional in a medical environment, a medical clinic. And I don't think providers are dressing up like they used to and making sure that they had high-end clothes. Everybody's in uniforms now. And I think it's reassuring to patients, that they are being taken care of better now than just skin procedures. So just to tag on to Lori's. Branding. I think, branding's very important. That I think before somebody goes into medical aesthetics, or if they're just new into it, they need to set out a business plan and have a vision, have an attainable vision. And part of that attainable vision is going to be their personal branding. How are they going to be able to put that vision across to their business and to their patients? And really, building on their strengths and their passions. Sort of physical branding. So, different colors and color schemes and things like that, and making sure everything's very, blends from one to the other, whether it's your stationery or your paint on your walls or anything like that. But I think with the personal branding, I think it's really important that they have clear in their mind their set goals and their visions of what they want from their business.
Thank you, Tracy. I just see a question just come up here. We're getting great comments. Thank you very much for your comments and your little hearts and all those things. The question though, and I think, Mary Beth, as we're kind of coming close to the end here, the question I wanted to ask you was about, for those looking to scale their practice, what are important strategies they could focus on? But I'd like to expand that question to capture the question we have here, is that not only just on scaling existing, but a couple of comments on entering into the field of aesthetics. Are you up for that?
I appreciate it, and I would much rather handle that question than the one on scaling.
Well, then you just go right ahead. That's a great.
Kara
Ray has put that up for us, so please go ahead and answer that.
I'm not a big fan of scaling in medical aesthetics, for the simple fact that if you talk to most patients, they don't want to go to a reproducible, everything looks the same practice. They come to aesthetic practices because they want to feel special. They want to feel taken care of. They want to know their provider and have that relationship, like Lori and Tracy have talked. And so, Kara, to answer your question on entering the field of aesthetic medicine, let me give you some thoughts and a process. The first thing you want to do is you want to really make sure of why you're thinking about this field. I jokingly talk to a lot of people all the time who say when they put ads out that they get responses from two people. One is the 50-year-old nurse who's been in the hospital or clinic their whole life, and they got Botox or a treatment for the first time. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know nurses could do this. What a great job. I'm going to go to a weekend training. I'm going to get this job and I'm going to stand in a room and I'm going to inject Botox all day long. Not the job. Or they're 25 and they just got out of PA school and they're like, I love medicine, but I didn't want to spend all that time going to be a doctor. And so I really love everything about beauty. And so I'm going to get this job and I'm going to go work in aesthetic medicine and I'm going to get all kinds of free product. I'm going to stand in a room and I'm going to take selfies and I'm going to be Insta famous. Not the job. And so what I like to say is really learn the field first. Understand that this is a medical profession. It is a specialty. You need to be a good provider in whatever you trained in first. You're not going to come out of nursing school. Thanks, Lori. You guys all know I'm so passionate about this, but you have to be a good medical provider before you choose this area of specialty. So find mentors, find people who are in this. Make sure even if you're not ready to get treated yet, go have a consultation. Offer to pay for the consultation and talk to your provider and just say, look, I am super interested in the field of aesthetic medicine. I'm paying for this consultation today because I would just love to have you tell me about the field and what you did and how hard it is and what I need to do. I'm very fond of telling people you have to invest in yourself before you can expect others to invest in you. It's very hard to get a job as a new provider in aesthetic medicine because it is cash medicine. And if you don't have the ability to provide services, then you can't bring revenue into the clinic. And if you can't bring revenue into the practice, there's no revenue to pay you. And so it's very much a chicken and the egg thing, where how do you get a job and how do you get experience if you can't get a job because you don't have experience? So I said that I'll talk about it, but then I want to give you some very specific guidelines. Number one, read everything you can about the specialty of aesthetic medicine. There might be somebody who's on a panel tonight that has a book particularly about that because she got asked that question so many times and wrote a book about it. Secondly, learn your facial anatomy. There is absolutely nothing more important in being an aesthetic provider than knowing where that needle is going when you pierce the skin. Tracy teaches anatomy, Lori teaches anatomy. It is absolutely so important. So the third thing that I want you to do is think about what foundations do you know? I tell nurses a lot of times, nobody asks you to just go in and learn how to do a Foley catheter, and then you go out and you wait and apply for a job and you don't practice it for 6 months. You'll forget what you learned. You learn first the why. What is the disease state that might cause a patient to need a Foley catheter? Once they do, what are the different things that may happen when that Foley catheter goes in? How long might it be there? What might the adverse events be? How do you handle those versus how does a physician handle those? What has to happen? Then you learn how to do the Foley catheter. Then you practice it. Then you get a job doing that. And it's very much the same in this specialty. You need to really learn and understand facial anatomy. Then you need to understand, if you're going to do injectables, learn the foundation of injectables. If you're going to do, an esthetician work and do medical grade skincare, learn the foundations of that. Learn energy and laser and body contouring devices. And then really understand who can do what. And Tracy, you're exactly right. What do the programs that are out there allow you to learn? I mean, a lot of programs do not allow you to focus on aesthetic medicine. And so you're kind of stuck trying to figure out, where do I go for training? So learn the specialty first, then learn your anatomy, then learn the foundations of what area of medicine, then get a job or start interviewing for jobs. Have about 6 to 9 months of income saved up, because you're not going to make a lot of money your first year as an aesthetic provider, because you're not bringing in a lot of income. You have to build a patient base. That's your responsibility. And you heard Lori talk about social media and Tracy talk about social media, and you're going to have to put yourself out there. You're going to have to talk to everybody you know. You're going to have to carry business cards. You're going to have to do patient education events, and it's going to be a lot of hours. You're going to probably spend $10,000 to $20,000 of your own money every year to go to trainings, to go to conferences, to update your education. Maybe you do something. Tracy's going to be doing Learners and Legacies up in Toronto in May. There are conferences that are geared specifically for newer injectors. Go find those, not the ones that are geared towards social media influencers. And then the final thing that I'll say is, understand it's not going to happen overnight. When you look at the injectors who are the most amazing out there, Tracy's been doing it 35 years. Lori's been doing it almost over 20 years. I mean, those amazing injectors where you see the results that are so good and so safe. If you want to be like that, you're going to spend a lot of years learning. All right.
Thank you, Mary.
My
And
passion.
and there's nothing that, what a beautiful way to wrap things up for us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I just so appreciate we've really touched all of the roles with, and whether it's somebody just starting out to somebody who's been in a while or expanding, and that's really what we're hoping to do. But as our time comes to a close, I want to just, first of all, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. I do want to remind you that I had mentioned that we have a very interesting gift for you, and here it is. You'll see, you can scan the code that's on the screen. I'll also give you the address. But as a token of our appreciation of your time and participation, we want to offer you a free marketing strategy meeting with Lila Stone. She's the Business of Aesthetics and Marketing Director of Equa Marketing. Lila has established herself as a trusted expert in digital marketing and is passionate about empowering medical professionals with marketing tools and knowledge to stand out in a very competitive market. You can see from the slide in front of you that Lila has considerable specializations. Certainly, those of you that are looking at getting into the business, new to the business, this would be super valuable for you. Of course, if you're not a marketing expert yourself, this is super valuable for you. But the gift is from the founder of the Business of Aesthetics, pardon me, Narain Aroja. He's also the CEO of Marketing, and as I mentioned, they're a digital marketing organization for doctors and are very specialized in the aesthetic field. So if you go to businessofesthetics.org/MSM/EX panels, That is where you can get the link to register with Lilas. That's something up there. You can scan the code that you see in front of you. That link will also be in the chat, so you can just go ahead and click on it there. But whenever you have an opportunity like this, I always weigh it from two questions. The first question is, what's at risk to do this? Well, I can tell you it's just your time, which is valuable. Absolutely. We so appreciate you being here tonight. But that's it. There's no cost. And the second question is, what's at risk not to? Well, that's a question you really need to weigh in how important it is to build your practice, to grow your practice, to reinforce your practice with great clients, great patients, and a great team. So first of all, let me just go to thank you. And thank you to our expert panel, Tracy Hata, Lori Robertson, Mary Beth Hagan, and Kelsey Herringer. So much insight, so much best practices and actionable content. If I was going to sum it up, I'd say you guys have collectively made the complex simple, the hidden visible, and the difficult easy. And secondly, thank you to all of our attendees for the privilege of your time and your participation. Awesome participation. Thank you so much for doing that. Without you, we don't grow together. And when we don't do that, we don't set each other up for success, which is what we've heard time and time again tonight about the importance of working together. A reminder to like, share, and review us on your favorite social media. We love likes and follows, and be a part of someone else's success. So until next time, keep striving for excellence. And on behalf of our panelists, keep striving on exceptional patient care, as well as great care for yourself. Good night, and thank you again to our panelists.